So I probably told you this already, but one of the people who did Four Trails, I ran into them when I was being a marshal this year, and they repeated back to me the tagline to the end of our videos. They may have only watched one and just remembered the line,
It's catchy. It's
but I'll
catchy.
take it.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
take it.
catchy.
Hello, I'm Michael,
I'm Chris,
and we're Breaking Impossible.
doing our best. So you're
So I
back
got a
now.
coach. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm back now and I got a coach. So that picture's a little misleading. It's part of a trail called Lake Young's Trail in Renton, and it's part of the Pigtails Challenge 100 miler that I'm going to do. But in fact, it's really mostly a gravel route that follows a fence in almost a square, and you never see the lake. And so what you're seeing there behind me is the side view, not the front view. Maybe I'll include a picture of what it actually looks like. But the good news
I
is
think
all I
I know
have to
where
do is
that
follow
is.
this fence, and I can't
Oh,
possibly get lost.
that is good.
So a couple of things happened in Hong Kong. I got a coach. His name is Aaron Dower, and he's with Mile 27 in Australia. So he's a virtual coach. It's online coaching. We're using two things that are new to me, and I'm learning things. One of them is the app called Training Peaks, which you've recommended to me a number of times, and I guess a number of people have recommended to you and to me previously.
Sure.
And as part of that, and as part of his monitoring my progress, he's using this foot pod called Stride. I had to buy this foot pod to put on my shoe that measures power. And the theory is that measuring power is a more consistently accurate metric than heart rate or perceived effort and all the other things I've used in the past. I'm not sure. I mean, I've read about it before, but the extent to which this is true, I can't argue one way or the other. I will tell you that the Training Peaks app, and I don't know if it's because of the footpod or just because of Training Peaks, there's literally pages and pages and pages of data from every single effort. I mean, I'm awash in data, and I've been trying to get away from screens and away from data. I was just telling you before we started recording about how I was using my Oura Ring recently, even though I hadn't been, just to see how my sleep was doing. But then I can't really decide if any of the things that I'm doing are really affecting my sleep or if it's more of an artifact of a previous bad day's sleep and sleep debt and rebound and all the other things. And anyway, we started on a rant before we started recording, and you wanted me to continue it about how we're far more complex animals than mice and how you look at the studies in mice and try to extrapolate them to humans. And basically, I just feel like the more I know, the less I feel like I know anything with any kind of certainty.
Yes, absolutely. I think the reason I wanted to come back to this was some of the reading I've been doing is in the exhaustion syndrome area,
Right?
and that much of the current thinking now seems to be that you feeling exhausted is your brain's way of helping you cope with what it imagines you're going to have to deal with during the day. So that if you wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep, it's largely because your thinking brain has already slotted out all the things you need to do for the day, and it's trying to conserve energy. And that in like total exhaustion syndrome or burnout, like you get stuck in that mode. And
Hmm.
to the point that you cut out anything that is invigorating, anything that is joyous, anything that is meaningful. And so the treatment is to like actually start to do that and unstick yourself. But
Hmm.
the reading I've been doing is talking a lot about exactly that thinking brain and its methodology for keeping what it considers healthy, which is mainly energy conservation. And so when you brought up mice, obviously they don't deal with that kind of problem, like,
Yeah,
unless they're brain. and
No, this is
thinking.
exactly what I was thinking is that not only are we a lot more complex because of our size and everything else, but because we have thinking brains, because we're social animals, because we have all these complex things that affect our physical selves that are related to our mental activities. And okay, so for example, I've been obsessed with sleep metrics and what gives me better deep sleep and what doesn't, and how much I should have and where it should be and everything else. Thinking about it too much has a negative outcome on the thing that I'm trying to improve. So, as a result of that realization, I had stopped using any measurements of my sleep and decided that I can tell when I had a good night's sleep or a bad night's sleep by how I feel the following day. And thinking too much about it is going to have an effect tonight. So I get home from Hong Kong. I try out the Oura Ring just to see because I'm curious about a change I've made in how much I'm eating and how late I'm eating. And then I realized that I've gone back to this thing that has this negative effect. And again, the information that I'm getting about it is highly questionable, or any insights that I think I'm getting are highly questionable.
Yes,
So anyway,
it's
long
funny.
story
The
short, I'm going to stop measuring my sleep again.
good, good. There's a funny story about, the I Ching feng shui master who studies it so much that he starts to worry that he sneezed at the wrong time because every minute
Yeah,
he's already seeing the
yeah,
future. And oh my gosh, now everything's disrupted. It's like,
yeah.
well, no, you just sneezed, buddy. It's
Now,
okay.
on the other hand, talking about how we feel and the effects of things on us, I am more and more convinced that the thing that has the most positive impact on my well-being, my emotional well-being, my sleep, and everything else is how much time I spend outside on a given day, and especially how much sunlight I get. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that if I'm outside longer and I get more sunlight, I sleep better and I feel better.
Yeah.
So go
And
outside.
yeah, and you don't need a mountain of data to tell you that either. That's the
Yeah.
other thing I wanted to get into is like just because you have more data doesn't mean you understand anything better.
Well, this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this decision that I've made to take a coach.
Hmm.
So, my friend Allie, who I met in Hong Kong, who is a coach, an elite coach, told me that if I were her client, she would and I can't afford her, but she wouldn't take me anyway because she's got too many other clients. If she was coaching me, she would convince me not to do four trails because it's bad for you. So, when she said that to me, I just think she's a reasonable person because she's absolutely right. I would talk somebody out of it too. It's a crazy
Yep.
thing to do. But she said, if it's that important to you, as it is, as she can tell that it is, she said, I recommend that you get a coach. And I got a coach. She made enough arguments that it convinced me. She's not the only one who said that she's somebody else that's important to me said they were glad I finally got serious about this when I told them that I got this coach. I'm going to leave out who that was, but
It wasn't me.
several friends use the same company, Mile 27. In the Hong Kong trail running community, there are a number of people that use them, including people who have done four trails, and a couple of my friends who haven't. And so, anyways, on their recommendations, that I went ahead and signed up, and I think I'm learning some stuff, and my fitness is improving, and I had an opportunity to bounce some ideas off of him, which I wouldn't have had otherwise if I didn't have a coach. So here's my argument, one of my arguments for having a coach. It's like what you and I do, and like what we do with our WhatsApp group, where we have friends that say, I did this workout or I had this healthy meal, and we encourage one another. You have that social aspect, okay? And it's like when you and I used to live closer to each other and we used to say, okay, I'll meet you at 6 o'clock in the morning in Renton Highlands or whatever. If I know that you're going to be there at 6, I'm not going to miss it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go whether I feel like going or not because I don't want to let you down because I know you're going to be there. Well, having a coach is very similar to that, except that it's usually probably somebody who knows a lot more and has a lot more experience and who's done more of those things that you're training to do. So I think that's true of Aaron. And I think all of those things are true of Aaron. I think he knows more than I do. And I know something, but he knows more. And he's certainly a lot more accomplished ultra marathon runner. I'm not a very accomplished one. I'm a complete neophyte. Let's just put that out there. He's done 100 milers. I haven't. And I think that matters. And I think that matters when you're bouncing ideas off of somebody. You just maybe you feel more confident about the information they give you. Maybe you're getting better information, but I think it's a net positive. If you try to balance out the cost and
Sure.
the benefits. So anyway, I have a coach and I'm studying power zones now and paying attention to that rather than heart rate and perceived effort. And I told my coach that I wanted to do 4 trails. So we have this long-term goal. And I told him that I had this 100 miler that I was going to do. So I had a short-term goal. And I also told him that I wanted to do the 4 and 4, which is like 4 trails where you do all 4 ultramarathon distance trails in Hong Kong, but you do them one day at a time over 4 days. So instead of Chinese New Year, it starts on Christmas Day, and instead of all in one go, you do one per day and you get a chance to sleep every night. So a friend of mine who has done 4 trails convinced me to do the 4 and 4 with him this coming year.
Nice.
Hello, morning.
Hello, this is John
Hi,
Fan Wing Chung. He's a 4 trails participant.
Wing Chun.
We are on the Xingmun Reservoir.
Yeah.
And we are doing a recce, 50K recce of the Victoria 162. It's a 100-mile race that John's going to do on March 8th.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So-
Midnight.
Yeah, it starts at night, just like 4 trails did this year. And so I told Aaron, I said, okay, I want to do the 4 and 4, which is still 300 kilometers over 4 days. And previously, I've talked myself out of it because of how close it is to 4 trails, and I didn't know if I'd have enough time to recover. Andre has told me he thought I would, but the thing that influences my decision about this is that this year, this coming year for 4 trails, Chinese New Year is a little bit later in the year. So the 4 and 4 is always starts on Christmas, but the 4 trails always starts on Chinese New Year, which the time varies. So anyway, I have a few extra weeks, a couple of extra weeks.
That's nice.
I think it's 7 weeks if I'm not mistaken. So initially, my coach said, yeah, I don't think you should do that. I think it's too close to the event. And I said, no, I want to do this. And I gave him my arguments. And he took time to think about it. And about a week later, he got back to me and he said, you know what? I changed my mind. I think you're right. I think you can do this. You still will have enough time to be ready for 4 trails, assuming that you qualify. But he said, that means I'm going to have to get you up to being a world-class athlete by December in order to be able to accomplish the 4 and 4 and also still be so fit that I'll have enough time to recover
Yep.
before 4 trails. And I said, that's your mandate. That's the goal for us to get me to that point where I am a world-class athlete by December. So that's what I'm working on.
I mean, yeah, it's super interesting. I keep going back and forth. It's on the one hand, from our martial arts training and everything else, of course you need a coach. You need somebody to tell you how you're not doing it right and to point out what you think you're doing versus what you are doing and all of those kinds of things. On the other hand, like I'm more leaning into that perceived exertion thing, right? Trying to be in the moment of the running and just let that keep going. And the issue is more about the fitness than, my stumbling blocks, like have been physical and mental over the last 18 months, right? I'm so disappointed. This time, in 2023, I was already doing 50 miles. I was really looking forward to ramping that up and doing 100 miles and then tapering off to do the Sormlands 100, right? But just everything came crashing down. And so now I'm at, dare I say, rock bottom and trying to build back up. And just as we were talking before filming, the fasciitis in the feet is bad. And the strained tendon, my MCL is not good. So anyway, I've gone to get new inserts, which really, really helped before. And I need to get some cushy shoes because almost all my running is on pavement right now, just because I'm in the middle of the city. So I have to run 5 miles to get to a park, and most of those trails are paved for another 3 or 5 miles. So anyway, complain. But the other thing that I've been thinking is exactly what you land on, which is you don't need a coach for most of what we're doing, but to achieve the goal, it's world-class fitness. And I often wonder if I'm fooling myself by not taking more advantage or having someone to push a little bit, right? But then it comes full circle for me, because it's like, well, if I'm not going to push myself, what difference is the other person going to do? So I still haven't made the leap. I look forward to learning more about like how you're perceiving it and how it's helping you, and then maybe I'll make the leap. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I think what you say is true. I was telling Andre about the loop not being all that flat and how it's not easy. And he said, easy's not going to get you 4 trails. And I think back to what Nikki Hahn said to me about 300 kilometers is no joke and it's proper hard. This is a tremendously ambitious thing. Even just doing the Maclehose Trail in one go is a tremendously ambitious thing to do. So having that extra little bit of help, it may or may not make the difference. It may be the thing that tips me. If I finally qualify this year, you could make the argument that I was eventually going to qualify anyway, regardless. But it could be just like quitting alcohol. Maybe it didn't make the difference, but maybe the each of these things combined add up to enough of a difference to matter.
Yeah, I think the coach has two main benefits from my perspective. One is you can't fool yourself because someone else is doing the measurement for you.
The
Right?
very first thing he said to me was, "I'm here to hold you accountable."
Yeah. And so again, for me, that's like, well, I have enough information that I should be doing that for myself. So that's
Right.
why I discount it a little bit. And then the second thing is they know what this level of fitness needs to be, which is your earlier point about expertise. And
Yeah.
the only doubt I have about that one, of course, is like, how old is this guy? Like, does he know what it means for our age, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, he's close to my age, closer
there you
to
go
my
then.
age.
All
He's
right,
closer
well,
to your age than mine. He's not, but this is a self-selecting thing because most of the ultra people that I am familiar with are closer to our age. They tend to be older runners, and that may be because you have to spend years getting to that level. But they also,
there's research out there that it's actually somewhat kind of weirdly evolutionary, that running is one of those things that you do weirdly get better over time. And also interestingly, women do way better.
yeah, also strength training tends to get better as you get older because muscle builds on muscle
Huh.
up to a point. And the other thing that I've noticed about ultra endurance people and ultra runners is that they often tend to be people with master's degrees or postgraduate degrees. People like you and me who like statistics and looking at data and all the rest of it, some more than others. I don't want to forget to tell you this story. I ran into a guy dressed like a clown out on the trail when I was trying to do 100 miles, and I ran into him again later on, and it turns out he's not a clown; he's a jester. Uh, but anyway, he has the record for the most number of 100-mile races,
In the
and
world,
he
or
is
in
about
North America, or
in the world.
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's 290, I think, as of now. And it turns out he's been at every ultra that I've done, of course. I may or may not have noticed him each time. I did talk to him a little bit. And he's about a year different in age than I am. So, my friend Tomo is trying to do 100 miles 100 times. This guy's already done it almost 300 times. And
It's
he's
amazing.
older than you and almost my age. So
That's giving me heart. It can be done. Let's do it.
maybe there's hope for me. Maybe I need to wear a clown suit or a jester's hat. I don't know.
Don't take his brand. Come up with your own.
Well, he did a
Be a
TED Talk.
salmon. Sweet, swim upstream.
He did a TED Talk about 10 years ago. And he said the reason he wears the jester's costume is to make sure he doesn't take himself too seriously. I definitely need to work on that.
Yeah. Don't we all? Don't we
Yeah.
all?
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. And then, so the other thing that I heard recently on an NPR story about a journalist, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the podcast or the journalist, but she said somebody told her that it felt like therapy when they talked to her. And she realized that that's just because somebody's listening to you.
Oh,
But the reason I bring that up is that when you have a coach, one of the potential pitfalls is the coach doing the same thing that a lot of doctors do to their patients. And this woman, this journalist, used this phrase, "I patient." This is what she said that she calls doctors who fall prey to this. So the doctor is looking at a screen, and he's looking at you, and he's looking at the screen, but he's really mostly looking at the screen. He's not spending much time looking at you, and he's paying more attention to the data than he is listening to what you're saying.
hmm.
So she calls that an eye patient,
Oh,
as in a
interesting. Okay,
small
I get
eye,
it.
as in electronic.
As in like iPhone or iPad or yeah, iMac or whatever.
Yes, yes. And so if you have a coach, there is the potential that they're going to spend too much time looking at that data and not enough time paying attention to you, listening to what you say. Now, obviously, a good coach is going to do both.
Sure.
But on that note, one of the things that I've struggled with is low energy availability. And I'm still convinced that eating in a shorter window. So I think general advice to most people should still be eat less and eat less often. But you can't say that to somebody who's trying to run 100 miles. Those people obviously need to eat more and eat more often. So I asked Aaron, I said, do you run fasted or do you run fed? And most of the science says you're better off running fed. He said always fed now because he had an injury and he equates that to having run fasted. So anyway, I'm trying to eat more often throughout the day and eat later in the day. And I was having this conversation with Allie, and she said if she were going to coach somebody to do four trails, she would find somebody, not an athlete necessarily, but somebody who had won one of those hot dog eating contests or pie eating contests or one of those things. This is
Why?
serious
I'm sure it's serious. It's
because
oddball advice, but I love it.
because they're able to get a lot of carbs in fast. They're able to tolerate. So if you watch both documentaries about four trails, the first one's kind of a jaunty, fun ride, and you get to see some interviews with the runners, but you don't really see them eating as much. There's the famous scene at the noodle shop where they're eating the real food for the first time on the McElhouse Trail, about halfway on the first trail. But you don't see as much of them doing the eating. In the second documentary, the most recent one called Four Trails, which was held on the 20 in 2021, the 10th anniversary event with only alum people who previously participated in Four Trails and people trying to break 50 hours rather than 60. Every single time the camera is on somebody and they're asking them questions, the person's stuffing themselves full of food while they're talking. You notice it a lot more in the second documentary. These people are constantly stuffing food in their mouth. And it's like the light finally came on. Oh, yeah, you and I've talked about this for years. I need to eat more.
So only now did the light bulb go off, is it? I mean, I just want to reach to the camera and just smack you because like all I can think of is 10 years ago, we're out on the toll pipeline, probably our second or third long distance outing. I think we were only going for 50 miles. It was definitely after we went around Lake Washington, going out the Snoqualmie Pass or something. It's the middle of the night. We've been going for like 5-6 hours already at the end of a day that was already a day. And I'm like, as you say, stuffing my face, and you're like, oh, yeah, I should be eating. Yeah, you should be eating. Yeah, now that you mention, I'm kind of hungry. Yeah, you should be eating. But now the light goes off.
I yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I still have to work on it. I still have to force myself to eat more, and I still have to force myself to eat more often when I'm out there. And I've learned, I will say,
You just need a little feeding tube. You need those like hats with the cans. And it's just
I have
like,
this I have the same problem with hydration. So I've gotten better. I'm better at so I can eat while moving. I've learned to do that. Okay. I'm capable of eating while moving. I'm not yet capable of eating enough while moving.
well, because what also stands out as you mentioned that is like when I read Cooper's book, that's already like 4 or 5 years ago. And we brought it up again because he talks about training yourself to run while eating, and like that you can train your stomach to digest while doing it, et cetera, et cetera. So like the signals are all there. They've been flashing, Michael. They're flashing, they're flashing.
Well, to be
Just read the
fair,
signs.
I think it is more important when you go past 50 miles.
Yeah, that's why on a marathon they have aid stations every
Don't get me
mile.
wrong, it matters when you're doing a marathon. It matters the longer you're going, the more it matters, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were recommending this book.
The
Yeah.
Explorer's Gene by Alex Hutchinson. So I recommended the podcast interview with him on Rich Roll's program. And the author tells the story about London taxi cab drivers. This was a study that was done years ago before GPS. And the London taxi drivers obviously had to know how to get around London. And it's a very difficult
Well,
thing to do, even with navigation.
it may not be obvious. There's a test. In order to have a taxi license, you have to actually pass a test. That you actually know the routes by heart, like by memory. And as a
Yeah, so
result, their hippocampuses are larger than. But so they measured people who had not yet passed the test, and then had passed the test, and they had larger hippocampuses, and they passed people who retired, and they shrunk again. Obviously, showing that use made a big difference.
So the reason that that's important, according to this author, and by the way, I should tell you, he's MIT. He has a master's in journalism from Columbia and a PhD in physics from Cambridge, and he worked for the NSA.
Well,
Oh,
but that
and
has
by the
nothing
way-
to do with, like, let's not fall into expert fallacy.
And he's an accomplished ultramarathoner and
Okay,
and
I'll
runner.
give him that, but like those 2 degrees mean nothing about physiology. So I'm sure he's a
Anyway,
very good researcher, and I
he's
don't
a
mean to
smart guy.
whatever, but let's
He,
avoid
he,
expert
he also
fallacy.
he's also almost a 4-minute miler.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So he's got some accomplishments. Anyway, so the whole point of the story was that the London taxi drivers had a larger hippocampus, and that since GPS, now when we're giving people directions or when we're getting directions, we're thinking in a very linear manner, point-to-point direction. We're not thinking about where things are relative to each other on a map. And the whole reason I'm telling this story is because I've been trying to get away from screens more and moving away from technology. And Andre's been doing the same. And I anticipated the lack of watches and now potentially the lack of smartphones for the next event. So I'm out in Hong Kong. I wrote a post about it. No watch, no phone. And I started going out with just my Octopus card, which is for the local transit, the MTR, and a small amount of Hong Kong money. No watch, no phone. So I had to get to the place on the trail where I wanted to run. And then I had to not get lost on the trails and get back. And it was an amazing experience. I don't know whether my hippocampus grew or not, but my world changed because I started to learn how to actually get around Hong Kong for the first time very, very well. I know that I know Tsim Tsa Choi and Yamate and Mong Kok like the back of my hand, like a London taxi driver. I could pass a test. In fact, I was having an argument with one of the locals about whether I was in TST or whether I was in Jordan. I said, I think I'm in Jordan. They said, well, yes, you are because of where the police department is. Again, this whole thing about relative to where things are around you. It was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. And I felt happier, by the way, to be out all day without being aware of the time and without having to follow a certain route to get somewhere. And yes, I got lost, but I also got lost less often the next couple of times I went to the same area. And sometimes I was okay with being lost because now I'm learning, again, my environment spatially, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're waiting for a bus, you know that a bus comes every 10 minutes. What difference does it make if you get there 5 minutes from now or 15 minutes from now? If there's going to just get to the bus stop, wait 10 minutes at the most, right? Most of the time, the bus comes right after you get there, so it doesn't matter. So you're wasting all this mental energy trying to get to a certain spot by a certain time. And then the other thing, I took a bus. Anyways, trying to get to a certain spot of this one trail. And I knew that 1 or 2 buses would get me there eventually. and I took the wrong one. And I realized as I'm looking up the road, oh, that's where I was supposed to go. Now I'm going to be going to Repulse Bay and Stanley, which I've never been to before. I'm like, that's all right. I can see what's in Stanley. When I went back the other direction, I took the right bus and went up to the right area. Well, this is the important thing. Now, when I get to Stanley Gap and I look down, I know what's in either direction on that road. I have a better orientation to where I'm at. Now, for local runners, they're going to say, of course, they know where that is, right? It's like one of the more famous vistas in all of Hong Kong. And it doesn't matter. In my world, my awareness of where I am in space and time at that spot is now greatly enhanced. And it would not have been had I not otherwise got rid of the watch and got rid of the phone and taken the wrong bus. So
Yep.
that's my rant.
No, I love it. I love it. It's just that once again, I want to shake you. But I'll share, instead of shaking you, I'll tell a funny story, because like I've been like, my kids actually, they're now old enough to thank me for this. So when we would go out on a walk or anything, I would ask them, so where's home from here? And I would just make them point. Like, nope, it's kind of this way or that way, or it's like this. And how would you get there? And like, oh, well, it depends. So we played this game all the time. So like, I've been doing this forever, you know, thanks to my dad. Thanks, Dad.
Were you an Eagle Scout?
No. I was a Cub Scout and Boy Scout, but mostly my dad took me hiking. Right, we went backpacking and hiking. He taught me to read maps and follow directions and be aware of whatever. But this takes you back to the earlier part of the conversation, which is like, that's what I like about running, is just being in the environment and feeling that sense of adventure and discovery, even on a trail I've been on a million times. So I take this awareness with me all over the place. And so we've been traveling. This is Budapest and behind me here. And when we were in Budapest, my wife is a champion at finding little weekend getaways, very cheap getaways. And so we went there just for like a Saturday and a Sunday. What I read about Metternich is that when he would go on these trips like we're going on, he would actually physically go up in the tallest steeples he could find and do exactly what you're talking about.
Who?
Metternich, the famous diplomat. It'll be in the comments later.
Okay.
Anyway, so I've been doing that whenever we go to these towns. Like, we like to climb up. It's really beautiful views and everything. But me, I'm like also looking at the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And so we went up, and the first thing we did was went up in one of these churches, and we're like, oh, where should we go from here? It's like the Opera House. And so I'm already like, oh, there it is. Okay, no. Okay. So we go downstairs, and I'm like, okay, it's over this way. We start walking. She says, no. It's I'm like, no, it's that building right there.
Right.
Like, it's literally at the end of the street. It's that building right there. No. It's you're turned around. The GPS says it's okay. Sure. Okay. We walked like 5 blocks over that way until, oh wait. Oh wait. No, we have to go back. Yeah. And we went back, and it was like, oh, it's that building right there. I know.
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why I like technology less and less, is because it's so often wrong. It can so often lead us. It can so often lead us astray, and especially GPS, especially when you're on a mountain or you're around tall buildings. And
yeah,
there's
that's
also
exactly it. In the cities,
and
it's bouncing off
and
everything. It gets so confusing.
and it's a lagging indicator. It's not caught up with you, right? So there's so many complications, and sometimes just being at foot level and seeing your environment on foot rather than in a car in transit or whatever just changes your world. And similarly, not having screens to look at or distract you can change your world. So I'm evangelical about this whole concept about getting out there.
Well, I have the, so we've fallen into this nicely hybrid, actually really good thing. So we'll be out and around and everything, and she'll be like, oh wait, but where we want to go to dinner is blah blah blah. I'd be like, oh, I know where that is, but I don't know where the restaurant is. And so I navigate until to get us in the right neighborhood, in the right ballpark, and then she takes us the last mile, so to speak, to the actual address. Works great. It's awesome.
To be fair, I still use the technology, for instance, to see where I was going ahead of time, and then I put it away, knowing what I already know. But there's still the serendipity thing that happens when you're out there. And my last example of this, I wanted to try Wok Hay, So there's a particular type of Dai Pai Dong in Hong Kong that's vanishing. There used to be hundreds of these things, and now there's only a few. And there's one in particular, they cook with a wok and they use kerosene. It's an outdoor restaurant, and it's like the last one, according to the New York Times anyway, that still uses kerosene. And you can't get a new license for these things. They're handed down like they're like taxi cab medallions in New York. There's a limited number, so people hand them down from one generation to the next, or they sell them to somebody for an exorbitant. Anyway, I wanted to go to this one particular place. I'd learned about it. I keep trying to find these things like the neon signs that are vanishing, all the other things that are changing. And so I'm out in Sam Shui Po, and I see this place, and I'm thinking, oh, this is just like that place that I want to go. It's probably not that place, but it's just like it. So a few days later, I decide I want to go to the place that I'd read about in the New York Times. Woi Men Sang, I think it's called. And it turns out that was the one.
So you got it twice. That bonus.
So I'd already been there. And here's the cool part. I already knew how to get there on foot.
Nice. Well, I hope you went again. I hope you had it twice.
I went a second time. Well, the first time I just happened by. They weren't open yet. The second time I went when they finally were open, and I had a chance to have the food. And by the way, the reason it's so good when they cook with kerosene, in case you're wondering, it's not the smell of the kerosene. It's because the kerosene allows the wok to get hotter.
The heat, yeah.
And the heat really matters because you put the different spices and things in, and it literally caramelizes them,
Yeah.
which creates a unique flavor.
So yeah,
And-
we're gonna have to go to Taiwan together, and you're gonna have to go to a night market where, like, there's just stalls of that stuff. It's so
Well, yeah, and then
fresh,
anyway, it was an
yes.
amazing experience. And
Yeah.
again, I happened upon this place because I was just out there taking risks and getting lost.
Love it.
So remember to go outside, do hard things, and keep moving forward.
We'll see you out there.